Less than 2 months away from the primary here in Georgia, and Democrats and nationwide are very concerned about the 2022 midterm election, particularly after a new NBC News poll. Joining me right now is Chuck Todd, the moderator of NBC's Meet the Press. Chuck, your network polling showing that President Biden with his lowest approval rating yet at 40%. NBC also reporting the frustrations and concerns from Democrats. As it stands now, how much of an electoral tidal wave are they fearing in November?
Well, look, I think they're fearing a big one. I mean, there's a few things that could prevent this from looking as bad as, say, 1994 or 2010, which were two pretty bad years for Democrats on the midterm front. And that is a structural issue, right? Structural advantage, number one, that the Democrats have is the Senate map is more in their favor. They really only have two incumbents that they're defending, that are in tough places, one of whom is in your state there, Senator Warnock. The other being Arizona. But for the most part, it's Republicans that are actually defending a bunch of places in states that Biden carried, right? So that's a structural advantage that could limit some losses. And redistricting has gone a lot better for Democrats than they thought it would. And if anything, the House has never been, the congressional districts have never been this sort of evenly divided between the two parties, really going back, at least on paper, going back a couple of decades. But that's all on paper, right? And so, you know, about the only thing that, to me, that's going to prevent 2022 from looking like 94 or 10 right now with these horrible numbers are those structural issues. So, you know, Democrats may only lose 25 House seats. Well, that's the equivalent of having lost 50 or 60 in 2010 or in 1994. So I do think that's about the only, I guess we would call it a blue shoot if you're talking about Team Blue versus Team Red, that you can see in these numbers. Because if the president's approval rating is below 45 in any competitive area, the Republican is likely going to win that competitive race, pure and simple.
Coming up on Sunday, I know you're going to talk a lot about the very latest developments on the ground in Ukraine. But look, this feels very different from even a week ago when we were talking about this. As the Russians regroup and reload, is the outlook now more? Has it really changed as far as Ukraine against Russia? I mean, I'm going to use a sporting analogy like Buster Douglas versus Mike Tyson about 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. I mean, it has been an upset, something that, quite frankly, I don't think anybody would have seen by April 1st.
Well, that's right. And I actually think, though, it's going to change expectations. I mean, I think the West all along thought, can they limit the, quote, victory for Russia? Can they limit it to just the eastern part of the country? Can they create a ceasefire and put the Donbas region in some sort of neutral territory? Crimea is punted, but some sovereignty in Ukraine is protected and all this stuff. I think now expectations have changed, right? And on the one hand, I think it means that Ukraine may have an advantage here. On the other hand, is there really an ability to sort of negotiate an end to this war with Putin in power? Is Putin going to be able to accept the idea that he made no gains here? And I talked to the spokesperson for the State Department today and said, look, there cannot be anything other than strategic defeat for Putin. So I agree with you. I think the advantage Ukraine. The question is, how do we, how do you get Putin to agree to losing?
Yeah. And
also staying in power. I don't know how it ends, and I think nobody's quite sure how it ends.
Let me move on finally to baseball opens this week, and we had all of those people that speak in absolutes. The lockout is going to mean that you're going to lose fans, you're going to lose this, it's going to impact. I have to tell you, in the last couple of weeks, I don't hear anybody talking about the lockout or the residual of the lockout toward the game of baseball. I mean, once the regular season begins, all is forgiven, all is forgotten for the most part. That has been the history of these lockouts and strikes that we've seen in Major League Baseball.
It is. I will tell you that I'm just jealous of the fact that the Atlanta Braves get to enjoy being the defending champs with a full regular season. Us Washington National fans never got that. Right. You also have an owner that still wants to win. We have an owner that does not care about winning. That's something that is really irritating a lot of Stats fans. But you know what, as you say, that's really the good news, is that we're worried about the on-field product. We're not worried about the off-field distraction. So in that sense, that's good. But, baseball's got bigger challenges than just this lockout. They're losing, how are they going to appeal to younger fans? My son is a rabid baseball fan, and he tells me he's the weird one in his high school.
Yeah, I don't know many young people that are following baseball these days, to be honest with you. My son is like that too. He's 19.
No.
Not interested in baseball at all. Meet the Press airs Sunday morning at 10 on 11 Alive. Chuck, thanks.
You got it, Chuck.